What does it take for a country to join the Geothermal Gigawatt Club?
For Kenya, it took decades of innovation, bold policies, and a model that turned geothermal luck into global leadership.
But how did they get here? And what does it mean for the future of geothermal, not just in Kenya, but globally?
This is GeoTV, Kenya's geothermal milestone. What's next for Africa's leader?
Welcome back to GeoTV. I'm Gabriella Skog.
And I'm Boel Stier. So, Kenya's geothermal success story, it's not only about raw capacity, it's also about how they did it.
Definitely. And their journey started in the 70s and accelerated mainly due to the creation of the geothermal development company, GDC, and KenGen, both state-owned companies.
Fast forward to today. The Olkaria geothermal field in Kenya is the largest in the world with over 900 megawatts of installed capacity. And earlier this year, they joined the Gigawatt Club.
Which is a huge win, of course. And no one tracks this success story better than ThinkGeoEnergy, the global leading platform for geothermal news. We asked their editor-in-chief, Carlo, Cariaga, a dear friend of the show, to break it down for us.
Kenya is located along the East African Rift system. This just so happens to host some of the best geothermal resources in the world. And so it's the same kind of setting as, say, the Upper Rhine Graben in Germany or in France, where you don't have to drill very deep to reach the temperatures that you're looking for geothermal power generation. So you can drill, say, 2,000 meters to 2,500 meters. And this helps keep drilling costs low. And so it's a bit more economical for geothermal projects, especially for power generation. Another factor that I think contributes to the success is Kenya has always been a country that has leaned quite heavily on renewables. It doesn't have that sort of rich history of oil and gas or large fossil fuel reserves. So right now, Kenya is somewhere around 60% to 70% renewables for its electricity supply. For geothermal, this is about like 30%. I think it reached a peak of 40% at some point. Kenya as a country recognizes the value of renewables, and so it's very receptive, and it's a very good market for geothermal power. GDC, which is the company that de-risked the Menengai geothermal field, has already done a drilling campaign in the Baringo-Silali geothermal field, which is also just north of Menengai. And further north of that is Suswa. From recent news, they've already started drilling, or they've deployed drilling rigs to Suswa as well. And so those are two very high potential geothermal fields as well that I think are about the same quality as Menengai. So these are also very big. Aside from that, Olkaria is also still expanding. I think KenGen received approval recently for an Olkaria 7 power plant. The operating capacity of the Olkaria field is somewhere around 900 megawatts, which would bring it, it's going to be somewhere around the same size of the Salton Sea geothermal field, which is one of the biggest in the world. So this is something that Kenya can also be very proud of and also quite exciting for the future. GDC and Menengai and also KenGen and Olkaria is quite keen in developing direct use applications for geothermal. As people in geothermal may know, not all of geothermal wells are drilled successfully or hit the temperatures and pressures needed for power generation. And so there's an excellent opportunity to pivot to, say, direct use applications. So GDC is very active in, say, piloting projects in for milk pasteurization or drying of agricultural goods. So this kind of reframes our perception of, say, what is a successful geothermal well, rather. Because even if you don't hit the temperatures and pressures you need for power generation, you can still use them for commercially viable application.
So a public-private partnership model that de-risks exploration, world-class geology, and a high commitment to renewables, that's Kenya's recipe for success.
But how does this model actually work in practice, and what are the challenges behind the scenes?
First of all, Olkaria, we are located right in the heart of Hell's Gate National Park. That's where we carry out our geothermal activities. And I would say the biggest challenge, currently would be the issue of curtailment, which is not just impacting us, but it's an industry thing. That would be the biggest challenge. But other than that, we've also been to evacuate our power, consistently and being available almost 98%. But that hasn't stopped us from being available whenever we are required. As you know, geothermal is baseload. Day or night, you are there to deliver the power. The complex was developed in phases, between the year 2000 and 2025. We've been able to grow from 13 megawatts to the current 150 megawatts. And some of the benefits that come with such developments, it allows you, you have time to monitor your resource and study it, and therefore you can develop based on the resource conditions. It's also enabling you, respond to the energy demands of the country. As the demand grows, then you are able to increase your capacity. Not to mention that some of the infrastructure that was built in the early days are now used as during the development phase. So reducing your cost, like the steam gathering system, piping. So that is also reducing the costs. This phase development has also enabled, the country to not over-rely on hydro or other or fuel-based power plants, which could be expensive and sometimes not so reliable. One of the lessons I've learned over time is that really the people running the power plant are just as important as the technology or the systems in place. When you have a team that is engaged with a safety culture, with good communication, then we are able to address any failures when they happen within a very short time. From my perspective, I tend to think, yes, it's very good that we're using geothermal for generation. That's really, really important. But I also think if we could have more manufacturing plants and industrial parks, as close as possible to geothermal power plants, then that would lower, the cost of power significantly. It would also ensure reliability, reliable power. And I believe it can be really a good way to attract investments in manufacturing.
From a gigawatt milestone to a model for the world, Kenya's geothermal story isn't just about numbers.
No, they've shown how the public and private sector can work together to turn potential into power.
Definitely. And with new fields on the horizon and Olkaria still growing, Kenya isn't just in the gigawatt club.
They're showing the world what's possible.
For sure. And we are extremely excited about the success in Kenya. This episode of GeoTV has come to an end. Until we see you next time, stay energized, stay curious,
and stay hot.